The local councillor for Ward 2 is Lloyd Rang, and you can't call him just a councillor. He's got amazing experience, ranging from teaching school right through to advising the Premier of Ontario. Lloyd Rang, today's guest on Exit 425. Today's guest at Exit 425.
In the main corridor of Exit 425.
Local politicians to connect with families.
What are some unique challenges?
Thanks very much, Steve, for having me.
Exit 425. It's where we live. Lloyd Rang, welcome. Thanks for meeting me here at Exit 425.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve, and thanks for the show. This is really great local journalism, and I really appreciate you putting this on.
Lloyd, I got to say, I'm curious about the origin of your company's name, Curious Public.
Yeah, so a few years ago, after I left working at Lakeridge Health, I started up my own firm. And originally it was called Lloyd Rang Communications, which is both egotistical and a really kind of madman name for like a communications agency. So I only intended to keep it for a little while I built up the business. And about 5 years in, hired an agency to come and pitch us on some names. And one of the names was Curious Public, and I hated it. Because I didn't think it meant anything, right? And the branding guy who was running the show, Matt, said, "Well, like a brand is just whatever you think it means. Like, there's no reason Apple computers should have the word Apple in it, and there's no reason, like half the brands out there have the name they have." He goes, "So it's you give it the meaning, right?" And I kind of hemmed and hawed for a while, and then he brought the logo in for me to see. And it was a cat with a little question mark tail. And I just started laughing. And I said, "That's it. Like, I'm sold." And then he said, "Oh, yeah. And by the way, the background's orange because we know you're Dutch." So I went, "Oh, okay. I'm doubly sold now." So that's where the name comes from.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Tell me about your impressions of Camp 30 in Bowmanville and where Clarington is in terms of breathing new life into that project. It seems a presenter, I think it was last fall, a presenter at council seemed pretty exasperated at the glacial pace of redevelopment there.
Well, yeah, this story precedes my time in council. So I was elected in 2022. This conversation's been going on a lot longer than that, of course. So the state of things right now is the municipality owns a cafeteria building, which was the site of the Battle of Bowmanville. Has a lot of historic value. And it's one of 6 buildings that comprise Camp 30. The problem is the cafeteria is not stable. The building itself isn't stable. And the reason it's not stable is because it's taken so long, frankly, to get our horses or ducks in a row and figure the situation out, between some challenges with the transfer of the land and then some delays with council. The situation of the building is such that it requires significant investment just to stabilize the building. So I think the staff review, September 2024, was that the budget was going to be $4.5 million just to stabilize the building. And it could potentially grow from there based on what they see once they sort of get inside the building. So that is challenging. The budget conservatively, the budget to completely, renovate the building into a usable space again would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $25 million. That's a conservative estimate. So now we're kind of in a situation where we've got a lot of projects that we want to do, for the municipality, and a question of where that fits in the overall scheme of funding is a bit of an open one at this point. We've got some money set aside to do some of the stabilization, but not all of it. The Drury Lands Foundation has applied for a grant from the federal government to do some stabilization as well. But that, it's only $500,000. It's not near the cost that we would need to just stabilize the building, not do anything to it, just make sure it doesn't fall, the frick down. So, so that's where we're at. And it's an expensive project. Here's the thing though, so I have a degree in Canadian history, master's degree actually. And luck would have it, my girlfriend in grad school was actually wrote the book on Camp 30, among others. Her thesis was called "Our Guests Are Busy," and she talked about the Battle of Bowmanville. She talked about Camp 30, and so I've known about this project like way before I moved to Bowmanville. And so it means a lot to me personally. I think, I'm a history buff. I see the value in preserving the building and repurposing it for as a partially as a museum and maybe for other uses. But because it has sat for so long, I don't know what's reasonable to do anymore. So that's going to be a council decision at some point. I think we've kicked that can down the road enough times that I think it's time to decide once and for all what we're going to do with the space. And I know it's a priority for the community. We did when we did the Parks and Rec master plan survey, it was one of the things that people said that they wanted to see done. But the challenge is you've got so many things. You've got waterfront, Curtis waterfront. You've got the zoo lands. You've got the escalating costs for the South Bowmanville Rec Center. So a lot of competing priorities at the same time, and where it fits into the grand scheme of things, I don't know. But in my books, it should be a National Historic Site. But that's for the feds to determine, and maybe our new Prime Minister will see fit to bless us with that designation. I don't know, but I just don't know what's going to happen. Bottom line.
Well, when I first learned about that site, and I think it had to do with my daughter having a soccer game on a field on that property, it astonished me. Like, how could that site and that building or those buildings sit unattended for so long?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first started teaching in Bowmanville, of course, it was St. Stephen's, right? So I taught at Durham Christian High back in the day, and I remember going there and visiting my counterpart as a drama teacher at St. Stephen's and driving through the space and going, man, this is a great site. Like, it's a great, and within a matter of no time at all, it seems to me, it just fell apart.
Yeah. It's sad. So do you know that like Heritage Canada or whatever the department is now federally has ever been contacted or?
So, well, yeah, there's a grant application that was made. I don't know what the status of that is. I can't speak to what the Jurylands Foundation's been doing. I know they've done a lot of outreach with the federal government. You'd have to ask them. I don't know the details of that, but my impression is that everybody agrees it's an important project, but
nobody wants to pay for it.
Nobody wants to pay for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned waterfront.
Yep.
I'm most interested in the beach at Curtis Shores, but what about beaches around Bowmanville and the potential for waterfront development there?
Well, I know you're interested in Curtis because this is exit 425. So we could talk about that, but my colleague Sammy is probably in a better position to talk about the Curtis waterfront. So thanks for asking about the Bowmanville waterfront, which is actually just next door to me because I actually live next to West Beach. So it's not my ward, but it's my neighborhood. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the waterfront now in Bowmanville for as long as I've been in Bowmanville. I moved here in the early 90s. I think we were talking about it back then already. There's a new vision for the waterfront that was presented to council back on May 12th, which is going to go out to the public soon for feedback. It's called One Connected Waterfront, 5 District Experiences. And so the idea for the Bowmanville waterfront is to have the main beach, West Beach, kind of be the anchor point with, some amenities to kind of support, things like beach volleyball and walking and active, transportation, all that good stuff. But the challenge is that not much of the West Beach area is publicly owned, right? We kind of own a small portion of it. There are 5 legacy cottages that are the municipality owns that are also on West Beach, which are have occupancy and short-term leases. There is a waterfront strategy which enables council to bid on properties as they become available in the area and enter into a like a real estate agreement with with the intention of buying. But the reality is, so I think, aside from what the municipality already owns, the chance of growing that footprint is going to depend on, again, what's available, what the price point is, that sort of thing. There hasn't been a ton of movement on this, frankly, while I've been in council. The West Beach residents have come into council a couple of times to talk to us and have expressed some concern about, how stable their residency is in these rented cottages.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the point at council, it wasn't a council decision, but it was my own personal opinion that, we should be extending 5-year leases minimum to these folks, because just realistically, we're not going to do anything in the next 5 years. And to have them keep coming before council sort of yearly to kind of re-up their leases seems like a waste of everybody's time. Council thought differently. I support that decision, but I feel like, realistically, again, going back to the competing priorities thing, right? We've got zoo lands, jury lands, beach, Curtis waterfront, rec centers. We'll probably talk about cell towers. There's a lot of stuff going on, and most of it requires funding, and the question is what we can fund, what's a priority.
You led nicely into this. The hot button issue for many is cell service. I didn't really appreciate just how bad it might be in Bowmanville until I switched providers, and now I get to experience that in Curtis. So how will this be fixed? And it's more than just cell service, really. It's a safety issue as well. Yeah. How can this be fixed, and who is responsible?
Well, you and I should start a new Canadian self-service company, Steve, as an alternative to Rogers and Bell. And I think we'd be really, really popular if we can make that work. So we'll talk about that offline. Well, here's the reality. This is probably the thing I hear about third most often from residents in terms of the volumes of email. And it is a problem. You're exactly right. It's a safety issue. I've had residents who can't make emergency calls on their cell phone. And a lot of us don't have landlines. You don't have a landline, I'm sure. I don't. Most people don't at this point. So being able to call someone in an emergency is pretty vital. The problem is, and I'm not passing the buck here. This is just the reality. The reality is that telecommunications is federal, right? It's a federal responsibility. They regulate it. It's their space. And we appeal to the feds a number of occasions as a council to say, hey, what are you guys going to do about this? And we got a blank stare from them. And so we took it upon ourselves, because our federal members, plural, and our federal government collectively were not responding to our need. So we started approaching some tower providers, and I think it was October 2024, we reached out to a company called Shared Tower Inc. And we said, okay, we will provide the land if you will provide the towers. So we have municipal land that's available. We can put towers, so you don't have to buy anything. Like, we can lower the cost of entry into the market for you. We have a need in our community for better coverage. Won't you please take advantage of our generosity and build here? And so they've agreed to do so. So that's good. So there's a number of towers that are pending. The first is on Fire Station 1, which is at Rickard in Bowmanville. South Curtis Arena, and Fire Station 3 in Orono. So all of those locations are pending locations for shared tower to build on. And I think the first one will be at Fire Station 1. And we expect that construction to start this summer, and for the tower to be active by September. So hopefully there's a dead spot, and I hear this all the time. There's a dead spot in Aspen Springs. So hopefully that's cured by this. And actually, Aspen Springs, and then around the Rosa Crescent area too. There's on the other, like, sort of lower below Aspen Springs, and then again on the other side of the creek, around Nelson. There's another dead spot there. So hopefully, there's probably more. Those are the ones I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Hopefully that particular tower will fix those spots, and then the others, the one in Curtis, one in Orno, hopefully we can address the issue once and for all.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just part of life now, right? It's not like cell phones are extras. It's what people depend on daily for so many things. So
yeah, well, and the municipality has done a good job of like keeping people informed on this. So there's on Clarington.net, there's like a cell tower page where you can get information on what's going on. So I encourage people to check that out. But I really do want to underscore, like, this is not. We stuck our necks way out on this for residents because it's not our job to build cell towers.
Nope.
We just got tired of waiting for the feds to do it, so we just did it ourselves.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? So,
yep.
Is there a limit to what the legal department in Clarington can do with private citizens, or anyone for that matter, before getting approval from the council in order to move on? I give as an example a situation where maybe a judge's decision is made. Would that be brought to council, obviously probably confidentially or privately, before an appeal was initiated?
So you're talking about like bylaw enforcement, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, okay. That's a great question, Steve. So here's the principle in government, at least in democracies anyway, that the elected officials can't direct law enforcement. So the Premier of Ontario can't say, you know what, OPP, I want you to go over to Steve's house and knock on his door and cause some trouble for me. That would be inappropriate. Now, in a banana republic, I guess you could get away with that, but this is Ontario. We don't operate that way. So the law enforcement branch of the municipality is bylaw. So we make, regulations for the community around, property standards, noise, lighting, all that kind of stuff. And then bylaw enforces them on our behalf, but council doesn't direct them. And in fact, there's an arm's length relationship between, and a lot of folks don't understand this. They'll come to their counselor and say, hey, I'm having a problem with bylaw. Can you help me out? And we're like, nope, nothing we can do about it, because I shouldn't be able to tell law enforcement what to do. I can't sick bylaw on people. That would be wrong. So there is a bit of a curtain there, right? And so anything to do with bylaw, anything having to do with law enforcement is completely in the realm of the judicial. So it doesn't touch council at all. We would be informed of things, but we wouldn't have the ability to act on them. The only thing that we can do is create the regulations that bylaw enforces. So we can create the rules and bylaw goes out and enforces those. But once an enforcement has taken place, there is no role for council to play in that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Before having construction commence on additional outdoor refrigerated rinks, because we've got a couple now in the works, right? Or almost in the works. Was there any kind of assessment in terms of the value or use of the Curtis rink?
Also, great question. Well, you and I were talking before we got started about where I grew up. So I grew up in Dunnville. It turns out Steve was just teaching up the road for me when I was down there. And back in those days, of course, everybody had I grew up in a farm community. Everybody had a pond. You skated on the pond. That's how you learn how to skate. When I was a bit older, I would learn to skate on community rinks. When I went to school in Kingston, for example, I played some of my first hockey in my 20s on these like outdoor rinks that the city of Kingston put up with these boards and stuff, right? And that was like the 80s and 90s. And you probably don't like. Let's leave this winter aside, but going back to the previous winter before that, it was just crap for ice, right? Like it just wasn't skating. Like I think we had like the Ottawa, like the Rideau Canal didn't even open last year, right? So you can say climate change is a hoax. The ice disagrees with you, frankly. Like reality kind of slaps you upside the face. Like climate is changing in Southern Ontario, And so, if we want to maintain a culture of skating, municipalities are going to have to take a little bit of a leadership role in creating some outdoor ice for, especially for those years when, there isn't any naturally occurring ice. So you see a lot of municipalities doing that right now. So I mentioned Kingston. Kingston's got a really nice ice surface in behind City Hall. Mississauga has a really cool loop. You got the belt line underneath the beltline.
Beltway, yeah.
Yeah, underneath the Gardner in Toronto. Of course, Nathan Phillips Square has always had one. So more and more communities are building these outdoor ice surfaces. So we had, we did the Parks and Rec master plan. We had about 3,000 people weigh in on that. And about 75% of people in Clarington said that they were in favor of expanding or building these outdoor ice surfaces. So we work for the people. So that's kind of what we did. So we looked at, where it makes the most sense, because you want to reduce costs. You want to put it next to a facility that you already own. You don't want to put it out in the middle of nowhere. You want to, so that you can maintain it cheaply. So Curtis was one that we selected. The other one is at the Diane Hamry. There will be one at there'll be a loop at the new South Bowmanville Rec Center when that's built. They're moving the dirt for that right now. If you drive by. So total cost, I think, for the two ice pads, $8 million, I believe, something like that. But they're really popular. So I went to the opening of the Curtis rink. Been back a couple of times since. Every time I went there, it was like, it was pretty busy, right? So people seem to be enjoying it. I like the ideas personally. I like skating outside because, I don't want to do recreational skating in an arena. It feels weird. I like, I'll play hockey in an arena, but when it comes to like my recreational skating, it's nice to be outside in the fresh air. So folks, they're really well used. Every time I've been there, it's been pretty crowded. So I'd say it's a success. I'm looking forward to the loop in South Bowmanville myself, but.
Yeah, Granville was on my case a few times about getting out to the Curtis rink. I was at the opening as well. I did see you there.
Oh yeah,
just missed you by a minute saying hello, but I did get out to that rink. And my challenge, I have a pretty long stride, so that little rink, it wasn't very good for me. So I'm kind of looking forward to that trail down at the South Bowmanville Rec Center. So.
Well, there's one, and Councillor Trail, speaking of trails, has been a proponent of putting a frozen trail in the Bowmanville Zoo for quite some time as well. Like when that park is eventually done, once we have a master plan for it. So that may be another one. We'll see what the cost of that is, but that might be a big long loop or a pad or whatever that could be used. So. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's not a huge ice surface. It's sort of ideal for kids and families, and as long as you're not, if you're rocketing around that thing, you got to proceed with caution.
And it's not bound by a schedule. Like if you're not available between 2 and 3 on a Thursday to go to the South Curtis, at least you can go almost any time to the outdoor rink. So
yeah, 100%. That's kind of what I like about it. Yeah, it's flexibility, right?
Lloyd, is go a stop, a hold? Is it anything? Like, what is happening down there?
Oh, the GO train. So, I mean, again, as long as I've been in Bowmanville, which is, again, early 90s, we've been talking about this GO train stop, GO service to Bowmanville. I've been joking that I'm going to get on the thing with my walker someday. Hopefully.
And then maybe drive through the 401 tunnel.
Yeah. So, oh, golly, let's leave that one alone. So I understand the skepticism because we've been waiting a long time for this. However, there is some good news. So Metrolinx, which is the agency that does all the, regional rail planning, actually has been doing some of the initial work for that. So they've done some geotechnical work. They've done some heritage preservation stuff. They've been doing some demolition in downtown Oshawa. You may have seen some because the line goes up through Oshawa and then across through Curtis and Bowmanville. They're replacing water mains and stuff like that in Oshawa already. So they're doing some of that preparatory work. And then the big issue, the big holdup has been the bridge crossing from, sort of taking a line down from the existing Oshawa GO station up north
Right.
through Oshawa and then around, right? So that I think has been, my understanding is that's been the big hang up, but some work is proceeding along the way. People forget this too, but that big maintenance facility in Whitby, right, that they built a few years ago, the East Rail maintenance facility, was built by the Wynne government and the McGuinty government, I think, together. The only reason that's there is to service a line that would go past Oshawa. Like the whole reason you build a facility out at the end of the line is if you expect traffic to increase, right? So that's why that thing was there in the first place. So really the preparatory work for the Go train for Bowmanville
Started a long time ago.
a decade or more ago, right? So, and then I think right now the big hang up is the stations. So, because they cost money and, we want to reduce the burden on taxpayers. So right now, the province has passed this what's called a Transit Station Funding Act or something. And so Durham can fund these things by cost recovery. Like they can just, sell have the fees for the development of the stations paid for by the developers who benefit from building their buildings, their high density buildings right next to these projected stations. So that's what's happening right now. So the developers are actually going to fund the cost of the stations. And so there's a lot of work to do, but if you're looking closely, there's progress being made. But I still might get on the thing in my walker. Who knows?
What is your assessment about how available our MP perhaps, are to the constituents?
Ooh, I could say, I would say I be careful here because I don't want to, speaking as a resident, right? Not as a councillor, because I have a different access, right? Like, so my thing is, I can, pick up the phone and call our local members anytime I want it, because we're all elected officials. But I think when my impression as a resident, talking to other residents, is they're both our federal MP and our provincial MPP are both pretty accessible to people. And if not them, then their staff. I will say that, because people don't always know what different levels of government do. So sometimes people come to me with a problem and I'll say, well, actually, you know what, that's more of a Todd thing. So I'll say, you know what, let's walk across the street from City Hall. We'll go over to Todd's office and we'll see if he's available. And sometimes he's there. Sometimes it's, his EA or somebody else, another staff member. And I would say 100% of the time that I've done that, I've gotten help for a resident right away. So my impression is they're pretty good.
Good. As a podcaster, mine isn't quite so favorable, and I've even tried the non-recorded invitations, and usually I get, if I got crickets, then I'd at least get something, right? So,
well, people can choose, which media to engage in and who to talk to, and they're free to say no. I don't miss an opportunity to talk to people, so that's why I'm here.
Well, I appreciate that they take advantage of all the media that's available and that gets messages out to the people in Clarington, exit 425, because wait, there isn't much. Sorry.
You know what? And so this is like my professional life. I deal with communications challenges for organizations and that's the biggest problem right now is there's no local media, right? That's why off the top I said, thanks for doing this because, we don't Metroland is a ghost of its former self. They still God bless them. They do great work, but I miss the days when my paper came to my door. I'm not old, but I like to be informed about what's going on in my community. There's a big hole there right now where people don't know what's going on. And the problem is Facebook fills that hole. And a lot of the stuff that's on Facebook is just, ill-informed nonsense, speculation, misinformation, half-truths, I hesitate to get involved in those conversations because people just angry all the time, right? Because they're not getting the information that they need, so they feel like they feel the need to lash out, and it's a bit of a toxic place sometimes. I
Well,
do
some
think we need to
people
talk about it all for like for reals though. In Ward 2.
I think sometimes the problem is, and I can say this as a retired high school administrator, sometimes people just need to be heard, and they often don't think that they're being heard by their MPs and MPPs. So,
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is so I know people always ask, well, how do I get in touch with you? How do I contact you? That sort of thing. And I like Facebook is howling into the void. Like, if I understand the need to complain and to to have your voice heard, but you're not actually like, it's like standing at the edge of a forest and yelling into the forest. Like that's not the way to actually get stuff done. So
and I'm not advocating Facebook as a
no,
tool.
no. And I just mean, but I think there's I think people have the impression, well, I posted about it on Facebook, so surely something will happen. Like, there's no mechanism for government to track what people are saying on Facebook, right? So if you want to get stuff done, like, email me, like if it's me, email me at City Hall, lrang at clarington.net, or or call into the office and book an appointment or something like that. My deal is I don't love talking to people on the phone. I like to see people face to face. So if you call, I'm going to set up 30 minutes to talk to you. I'll come to you, or you can come to City Hall, whatever it is. But like, I want to see somebody face to face. I want to see the problem that they're
Mm-hmm.
facing. And quite often it's a property thing. So I'll just say, hey, can I come down and see the thing that you're kind of ticked about? And then we'll try to solve the problem through staff and through other means like that. That's my approach anyway. Because I think face to face is a way better way to do it. And if people are upset, like, I want to have a conversation with you, but I don't want to get into a bun fight with you on Facebook, because that's just it doesn't do anybody any good.
It's but a year before council really packs up and ends what is your first term as a local councillor, 1.5 years until the next election. Is there one thing that you wanted or promised to get done before the next election on October 26th, 2026?
Well, hey, I've been thinking about this a bit. When I was campaigning, one of the things I said is, I can't promise you anything. I can only promise you that we'll make good choices. Like, there are some things that I want to see. I want to expand parkland, and I want to see, and I think we're doing those things. Like, I think the zoo park is a huge opportunity it's not in my ward, but I had the Parks and Rec file. So, right. And the Bowmanville Trail is expanding to the north. Hopefully we can, create a circle of green. It's one of the things that I would really like to see done before I finally step down from council, whenever that is, probably when the GO train arrives. So I love that. But my thing is, when I said I think we should make good choices, what I meant by that is, like, when we're building, we should build to the density that we need and not beyond that, and not eat up too much farmland, and strike that balance between, building out, but not, and building up. Right. And the big frustration I have, and people have heard me at council say this before, is the province doesn't let us do that anymore. Like, they really don't let us make those choices for ourselves. The day I was elected was the day that Bill 23 was first introduced into the House. And that thing has allowed developers to build whatever the heck they want in their community, no matter what people say. So, giant towers at 40 stories tall at Bowmanville Avenue makes no sense. 20 stories, okay, well, that's within the city plan. But the second that council says, no, it actually doesn't fit doesn't fit our building plan, doesn't fit our secondary plan, we would prefer if you would build according to the height that we've all agreed on. The developer goes running to the land tribunal. Land tribunal makes a decision in their favor, comes back at 40 stories or more. So we have I want to make good choices, but I want to be supported by my provincial government that allows local planning to build what we want, as opposed to what other people think we should have. And I have a problem with people in Queen's Park deciding what height a building should be in my ward.
And we could lay that at the feet of the premier the mayor of Ontario that we currently have. But I mean, this has been a reality for a long time. So before the Ontario Land Tribunal, there was now I'm immediately forgetting exactly what it was called, but it was that entity has been there for a long time and has the same sort of record, right? So
yeah, well, the entity has always served the needs of developers generally, but also, whatever the building plan of the time was. I mean, remember, Smart Growth was the Harris building plan. And I forget, I worked in the McGuinty government. You'd think I know what our building plan was, but I can't remember. But, and so every government has had its plan, and that tribunal has, to a certain degree, supported that plan. So Bill 23 being the plan of the provincial government, even though it's an arm's length agency, they decide who gets to be on the tribunal. Ultimately, it's like who's kidding who? It's a political thing. Mm-hmm. And so, we just know that at literally 98% of cases that go before the land tribunal rule in favor of the developer. So, it becomes a bit of a game, really, right? Like the developer decides, well, actually, you know what? I don't need to go through public consultation. I can just go straight through litigation. This will be faster, and I get my way quicker than if I play by the rules. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't be the case. Like we should all work together on this stuff. And it's not every developer. I'm not saying that. We have some very, very good developers in Clarington who are excellent relationships with. But, this idea that, a developer can suddenly just wake up one morning and go, you know what, I want another 20 stories in my building. I think I'll go to the government and get that. And, if residents in Bowmanville don't like, tough. And if they think that, well, we don't have enough schools, we don't have enough road access, we don't have enough parks, too bad. I don't really care. No, we shouldn't build like that. That's not right.
So we want a better system in a year and a half, and we want to get some solid planning in, and I imagine that's part of your goal. And
yeah, well,
solid, responsible government.
100%. Like, because I'm not a NIMBY either, right? Like, it's not like I don't want density. Like, we all agree that some density is good because it allows you to, deliver services more affordably, mm-hmm. and it does. Like, I know our farmers don't necessarily want to sell their land to developers either. They want to continue farming. So there's a role to play for density, but it's just got to be smart. I wish we had a better partnership that way. I really do. I wish our provincial government would hear us on that. It's an ongoing challenge. We'll keep talking to them, but I think that's if I had one beef, I think that would be it.
Awesome. You touched on it earlier. lrang at clarington.net. Is that the best way for people to reach out to you?
It is 100% the best way to, or like stop me at the supermarket. I'm the tall guy. And if you need something on the upper shelf, I'm your dude.
There you go. Lloyd, thank you for joining me today at Exit 425. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for listening or watching to Exit 425. My name is Steve Rang. Please feel free to contact me at exit425-401@gmail.com and check us out on Facebook, X, Threads, Substack, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Like it.